Okay, so it's the 18th of March 2019. Rather than talking about any specific subject, which is usually what I do, I thought I'd just do a news roundup. The purpose being just to spread, one of the great things about the internet, we just celebrated or reflected on 30 years of the World Wide Web. Sir Tim Berners-Lee um, has been asked a few times if he feels he's created like a Frankenstein monster. And I think the answer to that is yes and no. But anyway, rather than talking about a specific issue, I want to just give a roundup of news, and it just spreads knowledge and gets people talking about these subjects. I think they're important. I'm using Wikipedia, incidentally, their current events um, category. So there's been a major natural disaster in southern Africa, and it's affected the countries of Mozambique, Malawi, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. Cyclone Idai, or Idai, I think it's pronounced. Um, it's killed up to 1,000 people in Mozambique alone. This is a major disaster. The official death toll is just over 80, but it's likely that people in remote areas who may have been swept away, um, that could well push the death toll up very rapidly. And these are obviously poor countries to begin with. So, that's a very drastic situation. I know that Zimbabwe suffered severe floods about 2 years ago. Um, so this is something that's really going to affect those nations greatly. And my thoughts are with all those involved. Um, there has been ongoing coverage, of course, of the events in New Zealand. And today there was a mass shooting in Utrecht. A gunman opened fire on a tram, three people killed. Um, that isn't getting that much coverage, but it may be Islamist in nature because according to Mayor Jan van Zanen, terror motive was the most plausible reason for the attack, but there is so far not that much coverage of it. Um, just looking at other news in Syria, the Battle of Baghouz Fakana is ongoing. ISIS is almost defeated, but they're still holding out. And apparently, ISIS brides have said they are prepared to die for ISIS, or rather that there should be retribution for the defeat of ISIS. So they're very much, deeply brainwashed by this death cult. In Brazil, in the city of Suzano in Sao Paulo state, 8 people have been killed in a mass shooting. That probably would have got more attention had it not been for the fact that Brazil is a very violent country. Um, although Although it has a very high murder rates, school shootings are apparently quite rare, even though as a country it records one of the highest homicide rates in the world, higher than many war zones. Um, what other news is going on? Here in the UK, more local, Theresa May's third attempt to push through her deal has been overruled by the Speaker. The Speaker's getting a lot of credit for that. People are saying that is the right move because there's no changes in her deal. I try to avoid Brexit news. I just find I'm tired of it, to be quite honest. But that's a big political development. And there's been a tragedy today here in the UK in Cookstown, County Tyrone. Three teenagers celebrating St Patrick's Night were sadly crushed to death. Um, it's hard to believe this can still happen. In 2019, we're coming up to the anniversary of Hillsborough, and it's just sad. So, just reading from the BBC link, I'll read out the first few paragraphs. Three teenagers have died after reports of a crush at a St Patrick's Day party at a hotel in Cookstown, County Tyrone. Lauren Bullock, 17, Morgan Barnard, 17, and 16-year-old Connor Curry died after the incident outside the Grenville Hotel on Sunday night. The police said a large group of young people had been waiting to get into a disco at about half 9 GMT. No matter how much we screamed and pushed back, there was no movement, said eyewitness Samir Talan. One of the teenagers died at the scene. A number of other teenagers were also treated in hospital. I imagine this is going to be there's going to be a big health and safety inquiry into this. Very sad. Three young people in the prime of their life dying in those circumstances. And I'll just close with one other piece of news. Again, a development from New Zealand, and that is Jacinda Ardern has announced that the government's going to take gun control measures. The issue of guns has come up with this because apparently New Zealand, and I must be honest, I didn't realize this, is very lenient compared to Australia. They have pretty easy access to guns, including modifications, which was actually one of the big things that came up in the Las Vegas massacre in the United States. The difference, of course, is New Zealand's actually going to act on it. Um, the owner of the gun shop, I think he had a very poor attitude. He said, "Oh, will you respect me on this day? I asked you to respect me." The strange thing is, he wanted to give a press conference, but he didn't want to take questions, which just struck me as a bit arrogant. I mean, he's not to blame for what happened, but these are valid questions being asked, and if the gunman purchased weapons from his store, it seems valid to ask his views on the gun issue about gun control. I mean, that seems like a reasonable question. It wasn't a hostile question. It wasn't aimed at him personally. It was just, and his attitude was, "Oh, if you continue that line of question, I'm going to walk out." Well, why did you call the press conference in the first place then? If you just want to give your piece and then not take questions, that's struck me as being a bit arrogant. But yeah, so that's the world in March the 18th, 2019. Thoughts are with all the people caught up in those devastating. I mean, it hasn't really got that much attention. If the death toll is close to 1,000, that is a major, major natural disaster. That should be dominating headlines right now.